Are editing packs worth it? I'm the type of person who looks at most paid digital things, especially when editing, and thinks, meh, I could make that myself. So let's put that theory to the test. I'm going to try to recreate one big and a few small effects from this editing pack to gauge how long some of these effects would take me to build in Fusion, and figure out in a clear way when editing packs might be worth it for you. Who knows, maybe you can pick up something from how I've recreated these along the way too. Let's set the scene. It's the 30th of January 2025 and I get an email talking about a collaboration opportunity with BroVFX. I take a look and it seems like a good price with what they're offering. I have a look at the first couple of titles and think, I could probably make this. And then of course I see the number of titles, transitions, sound effects, and I back off slightly. But all the same, could I actually make some of these effects? And in what situation am I better to pay for them than to try making them myself? Also, I have a good discount code for you in the description, but don't worry, it's not affiliate. Alright, here's the main effect I've gone for. A nice film marker effect transition. Not easy to make, so I needed to set out a plan. This is one of the effects I originally wasn't going to try to recreate before realising I can't really evaluate how worth it editing packs are whilst only looking at the simplest effects. I'm printing off a bunch of the frames from this animation just so I can see what actually needs to go into them, and I've got my idea. Here we go. First I'll need to draw up these marker graphics. I think I'll go with physically drawing them and then somehow getting them into Davinci. Next I'll need to do the other effects like the bloom and film edges, and then finally I'll need to combine everything together and animate it so it's actually a transition of sorts. Oh, and that figuring out takes us to 15 minutes on the clock. Right, whilst I'm getting ready to do that, let's have a look at these super quick smaller ones. This one I've picked out is the ratings block from the BroVFX film titles pack. Honestly, the hardest part on this one wasn't the animation or the text, no, it was the star. But anyway, after I found the star node, I added in the text and the stars with some duplication and keyframed it with easing. Overall, this one took me 15 minutes, not too bad. Something like this is very doable yourself, however, I have of course copied the design from BroVFX, so keep that in mind. I could see this being used on stuff like product videos and things in the advertising space. Alright, back with the main effect, I'm going to try and cover this paper in marker type graphics here with some pretty heavy inspiration from the original effect. The goal is to recreate these bits of the effect. My idea is with the black and white contrast between the drawing and the background, I should be able to digitize this quite easily, but I suppose we'll find out. And with some little random lines to fill the gaps, I think we're about good. Okay, here's my plan for the digitizing. Got my printer here, a quick scan, send it into Davinci, and a Luma keyer should do the job. Although I have just converted this scan into a TIFF file because I wanted quality out of the PDF, and it's now over 11K in resolution. That will probably come back to bite me, but oh well. I do think incorporating some practical elements into effects like this is a great way to have the whole transition feel more natural, especially with the film style. The next mini one is this cool title effect from their film titles pack. 20 minutes. Probably massively overcomplicated this one, but it was the best I could think of in the moment. I had my mind set on the idea that the shape on both sides would come from the same origin. Yeah. This node tree looks like a mess, and it is, but it does work, and you have the two titles over here, and then the backing graphic split in two and animated. This was definitely more complicated than the last, and starting to get into the realm of the kind of thing I probably wouldn't have attempted outside of a recreation. As one effect in a collection of 23 designs, you might think I'm about to say for the price of just under £40 you're saving your money, because as long as you could have been paid minimum wage during the time you've saved from buying it, not making it, you're saving money. And whilst that's true, it's not the full picture, so bear with me. Back in with this filmic transition, taking this scan I did, I've brought it into Fusion as this .tiff, and wow is my computer struggling to display it. Honestly, I have no clue why this image is over 11K in resolution, because I can promise you the scan is not that high quality. But anyway, I've created this little setup here for converting the graphics in marker-like images. It's complicated and probably a bit stupid, but essentially it lets me convert the page into separate 1080p PNGs of the individual graphics. Now, looking at this for a second, I probably should have exported these as white instead of yellow marker, so I could use them as a mask and make them any colour I wanted. But I've not done that, so let's just stick with it and hope this colour looks nice. Next on my list was the bloom, and that's what I've just done. Actually, pretty easily. I've just masked a background gradient with a lot of soft edge, so we have this beautiful light bloom looking thing. Sometimes tasks like this can look ultimately overwhelming at first, but once broken down, are actually more manageable than you think. I mean, we're nearing the 2-hour mark. I've also created a little film edge thing with the shape nodes and mirrored that. For some context, this main effect / transition I'm recreating is part of a pack called Film Grunge Noises, containing a total of 24 effects for just over £30. I think this equivalent hourly rate might be looking low, but as I said, it's not the full picture, so let's wait on my conclusion. Let's do another mini title animation, quite a cool one. Got the hang of what I was doing and it took me 22 minutes. Whilst this definitely isn't the most elegant solution, each letter here is a node because I've had issues with character level styling, but all said, I think it comes together quite well, a cool title box. For the effects seen in this transition, I've picked out lens distortion, chromatic aberration, radial blur, and grain. Lens distortion is this look where the image is slightly warped, like in the classic 0.5 pictures of people. In this case though, I've used it in the other direction. Radial blur is just blur, but it spirals around a point. Chromatic aberration is where you get the RGB fringing look, and I've actually managed to create it just by pushing the chromatic aberration removal node slightly beyond what's recommended. Finally, grain, which is these spots all over the image, and I can start to see this coming together. I've just got to add the markers in, and there. If you haven't come across it before, the switch node is a great one, with you being able to have the number in this box choose which input is shown. Combine that with an expression to loop through them throughout the frames, and it's good to go. All that's left is these scratch marks, which I will admit I had completely forgotten about, and all the animation to actually make it a transition type thing. We're at the 2-hour mark with this one, so not too bad, but I also can't see this being time efficient for me. I think when things get away from motion graphics and into effects and transitions is definitely when I start to get out of my depth, but anyway, we'll see how this turns out. Speaking of, honestly, I thought the last smaller effect would be harder, but this transition took me 15 minutes to recreate, and whilst of course none of these recreations have the same ease of controls or adaptability, they're usable. This one is probably the cleanest node setup so far, and I think it's all about getting the easing on the animation right. I'm not saying I've got it perfect, but it's close enough. This is an effect from the Shape Transitions pack, and I really like the way these look, with a very TV type feeling. Now looking at this so far, these haven't taken me too long to recreate, but I still think depending on how you value your time, most packs you find on the internet are going to be a good value for time saved proposition with the number of effects that they have. I mean, especially here, with the Shapes pack having a collection of 10 transitions styled together for £22.45. Generally that's equivalent to you being paid £8 an hour, which seems like a fair price, especially when it's even cheaper with my discount. But you already know that's not the full picture, so let's quickly wrap up this video. This animation is a bit laborious, so I'll save you the wait in. 50 minutes later, I finally have something close. I may or may not have downloaded a Scratches image, because that's a whole project in itself making them. I spent another 10 minutes realising it doesn't look close to the real effect and desperately trying to fix it, but this is as good as I'm going to feasibly get. Here you have the original BroVFX effect, and now here is mine. That's a nice round total of 3 fully focused hours to get to this point, forgetting all the designing and stuff because I've recreated the effect instead of making my own. So there, you've seen it all now. Oh, and I didn't even start to look at effects like this. BroVFX have sound effects, filter type effects, transitions, tons of stuff in these packs. Okay, fine. The conclusion, here it is. Ultimately, editing packs are time savers. If you're looking at it from a value for time saved proposition, then they're a great deal, especially the ones from these guys too. Just looking at a lot of these packs, unless you're making under £6 to £7 an hour, and even less with the discount, then you could be saving quite a bit by taking the purchasing option. But that doesn't mean they're always right for you. This is because they're not a great value for time saved proposition if you never use any of the effects. I think that's the key here. Looking at these smaller packs by BroVFX, even depending on what rate you value your time, you don't need to be using every effect in an editing pack for it to be worth the money. And that's where I think whilst the bundle deals are great and much cheaper if you're looking at multiple packs, you still generally want to be buying what you use where possible. The other side of this is that if you don't have the skills to make effects like these yourself and you don't want to learn it all, then obviously they become a much more promising option. Still though, I would say, what are you going to use? Obviously I've used BroVFX as my example for this video, however this principle covers any editing pack you look to purchase for Davinci Resolve. That's ultimately my answer to this video. There's no doubt that editing packs like these are a good deal for what you get, but like if you bought something physical, it's only a good deal if you see yourself using it. Thanks to BroVFX for making this video possible, and you can get 45% off in their shop with the code Resolve Tutorials until the end of June 2025. And if you want to learn how to make videos like these, then drop a comment down below.